To America now, and the fear that paralysed much of Washington, D.C. is slowly fading after police said they were positive that the hunt for the sniper who murdered 10 people over the last 3 weeks is over. It's the news many people in and around Washington have been waiting for.
A sense of relief, no question. I think yesterday it was palpable. There was something just totally different about the way people were walking, holding up their heads, going from place to place in a more leisurely manner.
I can finally go back to my regular activities without fear. Like today, the first thing I wanted to do was I felt free to go to the grocery store.
Evidently, they've caught the sniper, and the kids can be safe and play outside and do the things that they need to do.
Well, the two men being held are John Allen Muhammad, a former soldier described as an expert marksman, and his 17-year-old stepson, John Lee Malvo. The authorities in Alabama have said they want to charge them with a murder that took place at a liquor store last September. They say they'll press for the death penalty. For tonight's 6 briefing, our Washington correspondent Nick Bryant looks at the backgrounds of the FBI's prime suspects.
It's a black van that's providing transport for the 2 suspects in the Washington sniper killings. Forensic tests on the rifle found inside their car links it with at least 11 of the 13 shootings. So who are the suspects? John Allen Muhammad and his teenage companion, John Lee Malvo. 41-year-old Muhammad is a Gulf War veteran who converted to Islam in the mid-1980s. At around the same time, he joined the regular army. He was taught how to shoot by the US military and received an expert badge for his marksmanship. But relatives claim he was not a violent man.
We are hoping and praying that he's not as involved as it seems with this situation. I could never conceive of him killing anybody, let alone as many people as they have counted.
So how did they operate during the 3-week spree of shootings? This is the blue Chevy, which it's alleged the suspects used not only as a getaway car, but as a firing platform. It had been specially modified so a sniper could hide in the boot and take aim at victims through a can-sized hole. And what of the motive for the 10 murders? In woods close to last Saturday's shooting, investigators found a 3-page note demanding $10 million. But there are also claims that Muhammad expressed sympathy for the 9/11 hijackers, although no evidence has emerged of any link with Al-Qaeda. Nick Bryant, BBC News, Washington.
Gott sei Dank ist es vorbei. Der Heckenschütze ist gefasst, jubeln heute die Zeitungen in Washington. Ich bin erleichtert, denn ich habe Kinder und die waren verängstigt. Jetzt geht es ihnen wieder gut. Endlich kann ich wieder rausgehen und normale Dinge tun, ohne mir Sorgen zu machen. Danke, Moose steht auf einem Banner über der Autobahn. Der Polizeichef Charles Moose hat fast schon Heldenstatus erreicht. In der Nacht hatte er offiziell verkündet, was die Medien schon stundenlang berichtet hatten. Wir betrachten die beiden jetzt als Verdächtige in den Schießereien von Maryland, Virginia und Washington, D.C. Vor einer Stunde dann feierten Politiker den Polizeierfolg. Wir gratulieren allen Beteiligten und Chief Moose. Die Polizei sieht es jetzt auch als erwiesen an, dass der Mord in Alabama, der sie auf die Spur der beiden Verdächtigen gebracht hatte, von John Allen Muhammad begangen wurde. Der 41-jährige Golfkriegsveteran Muhammad und ein 17-jähriger Teenager aus Jamaika, John Lee Malvo, erwarten jetzt ihre Anklage. In ihrem Auto hatte die Polizei gestern die Waffe gefunden, mit der wahrscheinlich 10 Menschen getötet und 3 schwer verletzt worden waren. Der Wagen der Täter war mit Schießscharten im Kofferraum ausgestattet. Die Polizei nannte ihn eine wahre Tötungsmaschine. Die Tatwaffe und das Auto gelten als wichtigste Beweisstücke. Die Staatsanwälte der betroffenen Staaten werden heute noch darüber verhandeln, wo die mutmaßlichen Täter angeklagt werden. Schon jetzt steht fest, dass mindestens 2 Staaten die Todesstrafe fordern werden.
The 2 sniper suspects in America could face the death penalty if prosecutors get their way. It was confirmed today that the rifle found in their car was the weapon used in some of the shootings. More details have been emerging about how they used it to carry out the shootings. From Washington, Robert Moore reports.
The relief in Washington has been apparent today. Police being applauded on the streets, while people across the city are resuming the routine of their daily lives. Investigators say there is overwhelming evidence linking the main suspect, John Mohammed, with the shootings.
That the weapon seized from the vehicle occupied by Mohammed has been forensically determined to be the murder weapon in the following shootings: Sarah Ramos, Lorianne Lewis Rivera, Pascal Charlot.
And of those 10 victims shot dead at random, the local police chief struggled to hold back his tears.
That all of the men and women who've taken the oath and serve in the law enforcement community, we do it for those victims and their families. So we will never forget. We'll never know their pain. And we only wish we could have stopped this to reduce the number of victims.
After emerging from a Maryland court, legal debate is continuing about where the suspects will be tried. Prosecutors say they will certainly be asking for the death penalty. Both John Mohammed, the 42-year-old former soldier, and John Malvo, a 17-year-old here on the left, are refusing to cooperate with police. They were arrested early yesterday while sleeping in their car close to a major highway. It had been spotted by this man who immediately phoned police.
About 15-20 minutes later at the latest, that place was full of FBI and all that stuff. And they found the people, they found the guns, they found the tripods, they found the scope, and they found a little hole in the back of the car.
The snipers had used a car exactly like this, a blue-coloured 1990 model Chevrolet Caprice, and they had modified it by removing a back seat, allowing the sniper to lie flat with access to the boot. Investigators then reportedly discovered that the suspects had drilled 2 holes through the bodywork, one for the scope and one for the barrel, and that meant they could fire the weapon with the lid of the boot firmly closed. It led to a 3-week reign of terror, but today this man we met was putting away his bulletproof vest. And school children are once again allowed to play outside. The shadow of fear in this city has been lifted. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
It emerged today that police stopped one of the men arrested for the Washington sniper killings just after the shooting of a 13-year-old boy 2 weeks ago, but they let him go. That is just one of the revelations since the arrest of 2 men for the 10 sniper killings that paralysed America's capital. Mark Jordan has the story.
The nation's largest manhunt at an end. 2 men under arrest and under armed guard. Ex-Gulf War veteran John Allen Mohammed and teenage accomplice John Lee Malvo, at last separated from the deadly weapon found in their car.
The results of forensic testing are that the weapon seized from the vehicle occupied by Mohammed has been forensically determined to be the murder weapon in the following shootings.
Police say Mohammed killed 10 and critically injured 3 by climbing into this car boot and shooting through a small hole. Malvo would then drive him away from the scene. A sigh of relief today in the Washington area, but in reality it was Mohammed himself who helped police most. He gave cryptic clues about a previous shooting in Alabama. That gave police fingerprints and a name that matched with those on notes left by the sniper. That led to his home and the search for the blue car. But not everyone's cheering Police Chief Moose. It's emerged that more than 2 weeks ago, police actually found and approached Mohammed sleeping in the same car, but did nothing because they were convinced the attacks came from a white van. 4 more people were shot.
We've all experienced anxiety. But in the end, resiliency has won out.
Police are already demanding the death penalty for Mohammed, but what was his motive? He called himself God. He gave police the very clues that caught him. He converted to Islam last year and is reported to have sympathy for the 9/11 terror attacks. Yet he demanded $10 million. We know what this car unleashed. Why is yet to be answered. Mark Jordan, 5 News.
Now, will the Washington sniper face the death penalty? 3 American states are now laying claim to try the suspects arrested yesterday. Most of the killings happened in Maryland, where there's a moratorium on the death penalty. But they're also wanted by police in Virginia and Alabama, where capital punishment is still legal. Our Washington correspondent, David Smith, reports.
Inevitable this in the land of litigation, but as the sniper and his supposed assistant were arraigned in court overnight, the prosecutors started arguing about who should prosecute.
And as we speak, this moment we are signing capital murder warrants on both suspects.
Down in Alabama, where John Muhammad and John Lee Malvo are alleged to have started their murderous spree with the shooting of 2 women outside a liquor store on September the 21st. Well, in Alabama, a death penalty state if ever there was. In Alabama, they claim first rights.
I'm going to make a personal plea to the law enforcement authorities there to see, now that we have the first capital murder warrants, if I can get an investigator to have access to the suspects and start talking to them.
But there's Virginia as well, where the sniper killed 4. Virginia, another zealous enforcer of the death penalty. And there's Maryland, with the greatest loss of life and the nerve center of the case. Maryland could have the ultimate call on jurisdiction, and Maryland is a state always reluctant to apply the death penalty. A state where one of the accused, John Malvo, would at 17 years old be treated as a minor, not as an adult elsewhere. This afternoon then, a quite bizarre scene of politicians and prosecutors emerging from lengthy talks to say what comes next.
Well, I think the prosecution teams, and I know they have been already meeting and they will be meeting this afternoon, will set up a procedure that will allow the full prosecution to the full extent of the law in a variety of jurisdictions.
In other words, both will probably face the death penalty, particularly with the revelation overnight that the sniper's car was quite a customized killing machine. Its back compartment rebuilt to enable the sniper to shoot from inside the boot, never leaving the vehicle. And the revelation that they called police apparently at one point almost boasting, taunting the authorities to investigate those shootings down in Alabama, claiming responsibility for them.
Thank you so much.
As for the millions of people literally coming out of a bunker mentality in the Washington, D.C. area, well, one mother thanking the police this morning said it all.
A sigh of relief. Was actually able to go out, get a cup of coffee, run some errands, take my children to preschool, and not have to look over my shoulder quite as much.
David Smith, Channel 4 News, Washington.
The 2 men who terrorized the Washington, D.C. area with a string of 10 sniper killings came face to face in a Maryland courtroom today. Lee Boyd Malvo, now 21 years old, testified against his former mentor, 45-year-old John Allen Muhammad. And as bad as their crime spree was, according to Malvo, it was supposed to be a lot worse. Here's Jim Stewart.
In the span of a month in 2002, the Washington area snipers killed 10 people. But had they gone through with their original plan, one testified today, the nation's capital would have been littered with bodies. Although Lee Boyd Malvo and John Allen Muhammad have already been convicted in a Virginia trial for the crimes, with Muhammad getting death and Malvo a life sentence, this was the first time either had spoken out about the sniper spree. And in a Maryland courtroom, Malvo laid it all on the man he once regarded as his father. Malvo testified Muhammad's plan was to shoot 6 people a day for an entire month. Then he said they would switch to explosives packed around ball bearings and target school buses and hospitals for another month. He said, "We're going to Washington, D.C. and terrorize this city," Malvo quoted Muhammad. Did he say why, prosecutors asked? No, Malvo replied. The level of planning left friends and family of victims shaking their heads.
It's more of a shock than anything else, because it was so calculated. It tells you a lot of what happened. We didn't know exactly how detailed they were.
Malvo calmly explained how they did it, first scouting the target areas like parking lots and then plotting their escape. Malvo accepted credit for 3 victims, including a Washington area bus driver. Muhammad did the rest, he testified, firing a Bushmaster assault rifle from inside the pair's Chevrolet sedan that had a sniper's hole punched in the trunk. In between killings, they taunted police with notes they demanded be read to the public.
Your children are not safe anywhere at any time.
Malvo originally told police he did all the shootings, but now says that was just to protect the man that he idolized at the moment. As for Muhammad today, he said, "I think he's a coward, and he turned me into a monster." Bob?
The mastermind of the Washington, D.C. area sniper attacks was convicted again today of murder. This time, a jury in Maryland found John Muhammad guilty of the 6 killings there after his partner in crime, Lee Malvo, testified against him. Muhammad could get life without parole, but he's already been sentenced to death for a sniper murder in Virginia.